Welcome to our last but not the least session of this conference. My name is Paulina Sekula. I'm a sociologist. I represent Jagiellonian University, the partner institution of the gEneSys project, and I have a great pleasure to chair the session, the panel. We have great participants. Let me introduce them. I will start with our guests. Bettina Muller. Bettina is the head of after sales in BTS Biogas. This is a company that has an international reach. It is an industrial firm specializing in anaerobic digestion to produce energy in the form of renewable biomethane. Then we have Roxani Roushas. Hello. Roxani is the global lead of the Youth for Climate initiative, which is co-led by the United Nations Development Programme and the government of Italy. And this initiative works to identify, amplify, support and scale youth-led climate breakthroughs, and also provides financial and technical resources to youth-led innovations. And finally, we have Tiziana Pirelli. Welcome. Tiziana is the coordinator of the Global Bioenergy Partnership, whose secretariat is hosted at the headquarters of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, with the Office of Climate Change, Biodiversity and Environment. And finally, but not least again, we have Rocio Diaz-Chavez as Senior Research Fellow at the Center for Environmental Policy of Imperial College London, the participant of the gEneSys project. And we will start with a brief overview of the insights from one of the deliverables. These will be the insights from the stakeholders workshop on the co-creation of pathways towards a vision of just energy transition in Europe. Rocio, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello. Yes, thank you very much, Paulina, for the introduction. And this is our almost last session, and we have been sitting all day, so I'm sorry. Please stand up. Please stand up. We didn't have a proper coffee break, so please stand up. Please stand up. As it is the almost last session, we have to finish in a positive way. So we are going to say yes. We are going to write yes to all the changes we are looking for with our bodies. So that is going to be easy. So, okay. Y. E. S. Yes. So thank you very much. It was good to just stretch a little bit. So thank you. I want to say, Pauline, please, we have only one presentation in this panel. So if you see I go really beyond the 15 minutes, give me 2 minutes after 15. So let's, this presentation, as Paulina said, I mean, it's just trying to show you one of the final tasks we had. And I think this one is really interesting because this is where we try to put everything together. So I know that some of these slides are, I'm going to pass them really quickly because you have been hearing it, everything across these 2 days. But for this particular task, was a task within this work package on energy transitions, we wanted to see that these energy transitions are not these technological shifts, but we are really looking at social transformations that require equality, participation, and justice. So we wanted to focus on this, how can we explore these energy transitions, pathways that influence gender equality, inclusion, and social justice? how to examine sustainability goals that can be aligned within this clean energy and equitable access, and position gender as responsive as essential for just transition. So for this, I'm going to show you the objectives. Was really to understand how to integrate these gender aspects into the energy policy, the energy transition programs, energy pathways, but mostly co-designing the visions we have for these gender-just energy transition pathways, and identify how we can apply criteria and indicators into these pathways. So, as I mentioned before, we literally use everything that was produced in the previous work packages. We reviewed the different frameworks for energy transitions. We reviewed criteria and indicators for these framework pathways and co-created the pathways. So the evidence came from all the information that we had from the different gEneSys outputs. We had the stakeholder workshop in Brussels, but we wanted to focus on two key aspects: education and policy as the pathways. We had this co-creation process where we had storytelling exercises, the group discussions, and how we set up this. And we used this backcasting logic for the creation of the pathways. So we wanted also to see that energy transitions pathways as these descriptions of how the work could look like over time, and also considering that a transition is actually a path towards environmental, sustainable, and inclusive economies and societies. So let's start thinking that business as usual. We have this currently high carbon energy production and consumption. We want to move into one that is a little bit more green with low carbon innovations into energy systems. But furthermore, we want something that has climate justice and alternative gender and intersectionality. So this would allow us to empower citizens to engage in the transformative process for a decarbonized society. So we know that there are many different pathways that exist for energy transitions. Each one of them is unique, and each one of them covers different technologies, different policies, and different societal changes as well. So you can see the variety, and I think that actually now in the presentation of ERA, you can see that there are many of these pathways already there. So, of course, from all the different types of frameworks that we reviewed within gEneSys, we have socio-technological intersectionality theory, but just to remember that we base almost everything on the gender innovation approach, and where we can bring together these different types of frameworks. And we use different criteria and indicators as well that could allow us to use, for example, intersectionality, but also, as I mentioned yesterday, to look at power relations and how to empower as well. So for the workshop in specific, we use a backcasting approach because we wanted to enable the stakeholders to design these credible pathways from today into the future. So for that, of course, we focus on how this future is visioned, how we want it to be, and how to integrate social, technological, policy, and even behavioral change. So how it was applied? Well, we defined a shared vision for a just and inclusive energy future, identify the desired outcomes, and work backwards for 2035 and actions for 2025. And we co-created this with them. So this is the way that we adapted the methodology within the gEneSys pathways, as I mentioned before, education and policy. So which is the vision that we wanted to have in the future, and which are the changes that need to take place to get to that vision, and what should happen in the present for those changes to be possible. So the work vision that was decided was by 2050 to have a sustainable society supported by equal and inclusive access to clean energy. And for this, We needed also interdisciplinary data transparency, dismantling barriers, and focusing also on these genders sustainable innovation. So what we found is that for the education pathway, by 2035, we wanted an institutionalization and cultural transformation. And to be able to get to this point, we need to build awareness and inclusion now, let's say. And this is still a process going on as we have been hearing. So, for example, some of the quotes from the participants for the present, education and policy, even though they are not so mentioned and clustered within the research field, are super important. There is a general lack of gender perspective in the energy education. Usually energy jobs are portrayed as male-dominated and basically nothing on the gender education. So by 2035, it was considered that we need more interdisciplinary programs, greater representation of women as lecturers, leaders, and recognized experts. And for example, one of the stakeholders mentioned, symbols are very, very important when you get to define a structure, so everything has to go with it. Or we need this systemic integration. Women are really attracted by interconnections, by integration, so this is an opportunity for women to be involved in this future. Now, for the policy pathway, by 2035, it was looked at, we need to have systemic integration and cultural consolidation. That involves including embedded equality, and this was mentioned. Some people think that actually we need quotas. And yesterday, one of the results was about Spain and why Spain is doing better than other countries. And Spain is actually one of the countries in the EU that has quotas. We have to take them with some reservation because we know that sometimes quotas do not work as well as we would like. But maybe there is a point that we should consider them for certain aspects and very well created. Participatory mechanisms where we can empower women and youth in decisions, and to be able, some of the policies that we, some of the statements that we had, and I mentioned it actually yesterday, policies still conducted in silos. When you de-silo policies, it just becomes more inclusive. That I would argue that maybe, but this is another thing that we can review. And for that, in the present, for governance foundations and visibility, again, we need more gender disaggregated and intersectional data, guidelines for policymakers, industry, and companies on gender and energy. And I think this is an important aspect also for the presentation of ERA. Maybe we need more guidelines. There are not enough. And advocacy and visibility. We have quite a general lack of data. It's important to take a stock on this data and maybe from this project. So we found also different types of overlaps, intersections, and pathways. So for this shared vision, we found intersectional data, as mentioned before, interdisciplinary knowledge with their own colleagues that are men. So in synthesis, the pathways towards the 2050 vision, we have, of course, education and policy. For education, awareness, skills, leadership, and cultural change. Data, same issue. Policy, regulation, funding, accountability, and reform. And the pathway. 2025, because that was the year we had the workshop, but let's say it's the present. That is where we need really the action. 2035 should really be seen as the timeline for consolidation, and 2050 for really trying to reach to some equality. And some of the quotes also. Policies conducted in silos, education and policy are important. To rethink the structure is really fundamental. My last point, nearly last point. These key recommendations that we have, 7 key recommendations. Education, and if you notice, these are exactly coming also from all the activities we had within the project: education, embed equality, sustainability, and interdisciplinary learning. I don't think that multidisciplinary can be enough currently. We really need to look at more interdisciplinary. Leadership, expand women's access, skills, and leadership roles. Data, build open, gender disaggregated, and intersectional data systems. Governance, institutionalize equality through policy and monitoring. We have EDI systems in place in majority of organizations. Why these EDI programs do not have a wider gender focus? They should have, but they are focusing mostly on the regulatory system rather than on the internal policy. Sorry. Oh, sorry. No. Oops. Can you put it again? I swear I clicked the other button and it still went on. Sorry. Paulina, just discount me 30 seconds from here. Look, it's not moving. It's moving. Can you move?
Which slide will you want?
Before that one. Sorry. Culture, challenge stereotypes through awareness and practice. There was a mention also on role models. So the mentorship programs are really important. From my point of view, majority of those, or maybe all of us that are in this room today, we all are models. So I think that is participating in mentorship programs could really help with that. Finance, use funding, scholarships, and incentives for inclusion. And I think this should include also all our research programs, for example, from Horizon, from ERA, that they should pay more attention on how the gender description in the proposals is done. It is not just that we are half number of women and half number of men. It has to go beyond that. And participation, enable women and youth in shared decision making. With that, we created this roadmap for education and policy pathways to 2050. So the gender responsive curriculum, gender disaggregated data systems, this is for education pathway, and this is for policy pathway. Interdisciplinary programs, leadership, institutional gender capacity, operational gender equality, monitoring and accountability by 2035. I think that could really be achievable by 2035. And again, well, can you go back one, Marco, please? Here it's not moving. Yeah, thank you. And finally, the full gender balance energy workforce, continuous lifelong learning systems, and embed gender equity in all energy policy and participatory national decision making by 2050. Now, really moving to the next one. Just a big overview of what is happening. I think that some of these comments show you on, if we think about energy transition pathways, the current situation with the war in Iran, the International Energy Agency, the head declared the damage is done. Global oil crisis has changed fossil fuel industry forever. So maybe this is an opportunity really to push the transition. We have to think about that. And the bottom line on the anchor thesis, the Iran war can hinder net zero by raising financing costs, disrupting trade and critical materials, incentivizing short-term fossil responses, and undermining the stable governance environment needed for rapid sustainable energy transition deployment. It could be an opportunity, but it could also contribute to rush some things, again, backwards. And finally, I mentioned it yesterday, the review of Sustainable Development Goal on energy was recent, and maybe this is a time to really rethink what is going to happen for after 2030. This is also kind of an opportunity for that. So, conclusions. The workshop really help us to create this vision vision and the long-term policy and education actions. Backcasting also helped to set up this vision. The key finding was that equality is a system, but it's not a single goal, so we can't have multiple goals for education, policy, finance, and culture. We recognize also as the cultural change is the hardest, but also essential part of this process. And the roadmap also helps to really put some things, I would say, into perspective. So I want to mention that this report and also the one on indicators, both of them are available at the website. And I also just want to thank our partners that participated in the workshop in Brussels. So Yara, Elizabeth, Antonio, and Serena. So thank you very much. It was really good to have you there. And with that, I finish. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yara, for your presentation. From this presentation and also from the whole discussion we had yesterday and we are having today, it seems obvious that implementing gender dimension and gender equality measures into education and research and innovation is an innovation itself, and we should go in this direction to expand our innovative potentials. So now going to the areas that were mentioned within the recommendation Rocio discussed, I would like to ask our guests on their perspectives into a few aspects of the energy transition and gender aspects. So maybe we could start with Roxani. From your perspective and the perspective of early career people, what would be for you the most important factor to strengthen gender responsive education systems as such?
Good morning, colleagues, and congratulations, first of all, to the whole consortium for concluding this very interesting research project, and thanks, Rocio, for presenting the paper. I've always found foresight and backcasting methodologies really interesting ways to engage people in conversations about futures. I work for UNDP, the United Nations Development Programme, which is the largest UN agency working in an integrated way across sustainable development topics. We're present in 170 countries. Energy is one of the areas in which we work, primarily by engaging governments and stakeholders on the ground in policy change. I work at UNDP's Rome Center for Climate and Energy here in Rome. The center works in collaboration with the Italian government on unlocking climate and energy finance, particularly in Africa through our programs Pista and Energy for Growth. But I'm responsible for leading the Youth for Climate initiative, as Paulina mentioned. So I'm coming at this really from the perspectives of innovation, intergenerational justice, and also just transition more broadly. So just a caveat, I'm not a gender or energy expert as such, but we'll share some of what I've read from UNDP materials and also from what we hear from the young people we work with in the energy sector around the world. So at the risk of being repetitive, because I haven't been able to follow all the sessions of the conference, apologies for that. And I'm mindful that I sit in front of a room of academics, so I hope I'm getting the data right, also because I think different sources sometimes cite slightly different data, but just to reiterate the challenge in the education system, women are estimated to form just 20% of the energy workforce globally, and in part this is of course due to women forming less than 40% of STEM graduates globally, and yet from what I've seen in the data, women seem to be twice more likely to be employed in solar PV than in oil and gas. So maybe this is a bit of a hope that renewables are attracting more and more women, potential opportunity there. So what are some of the factors that I think that are important for education systems to keep in mind in this in these transition pathways? One is that I think they need to become more flexible in order to keep up. So become more data informed and to adapt more regularly, because labor markets, and perhaps our colleagues here working in energy companies can share their experience as well, but labor markets seem to be evolving really fast and educational systems are not really keeping up. So irrespective of gender, I think that's really important. And one way of embedding that flexibility is perhaps to invest more in TVET, which also allows you to reach more of a diversity of roles in labor markets, because I think a lot of the time education systems are, maybe this is my perception, but investing in the higher skilled high level skills in engineering tracks and so on, and perhaps we're missing career pathways in other parts of the value chains. And another element that I think is essential in this flexibility and adaptive nature is the interdisciplinarity in systems thinking that you mentioned, Rocio, because the energy technologies have been there for a long time. Perhaps the reason they haven't been applied so effectively is because of the lack of interdisciplinarity and recognizing, okay, you need to unlock the finance systems, you need to unlock the policy systems. It's not the education aspect. So the technology in itself is not enough. Speaking of technology, I think the second factor that's really important in the education system is digital divides, and these are expected to grow with AI becoming more and more embedded in energy, in the energy sector. The data I saw is that women are 2.5 times more likely than men to be displaced due to automation in the energy sector. Third is enhancing learning to earning pathways, so really linking education systems more closely to the transition then into labor markets. I'm saying this because I used to work in the Arab states with women in the STEM field, and in the Arab states actually have 48% STEM graduates that are women. That's the highest rate globally, but they have the lowest labor force participation rates, and this is believed to be because of norms and cultural expectations in terms of care and family responsibilities. So women are expected to get educated, but not necessarily to then do something with that education, which is a real shame. And finally, I think the intersectional dimension, so prioritizing underrepresented groups in education is really important to breaking perhaps that energy poverty cycle, because they are best positioned to break those cycles in their own communities. I'm thinking here of Indigenous women in particular, who are perhaps best placed to bring these solutions to their communities, which are some of the more energy poor. I'll stop there as I've spoken long enough.
Thank you very much. Roxani mentioned data, the need for data, so it refers to my second question to Tiziana. We know that we need data to design measures, evidence-based, and then to monitor their effectiveness. So my question would be how to, or what is necessary to create transparent, reliable, intersectional data systems to be able to base on this.
Thank you so much, and thank you. Thanks to Rocio for the invitation, and to all the panelists and speakers today for the very impressive data that you shared also today. So coming back to data, I'm the coordinator of the Global Bioenergy Partnership here at FAO headquarters, and we are a partnership with 93 members all over the world. And one of our major outcomes is the development of a methodology that is a set of indicators, for instance, to measure the sustainability of bioenergy value chains. This is one just to highlight the fact that data are essential to ensure sustainability, and I think that this model could be replicated and applied also to ensure in the monitoring and of our system, energy system, to see if gender is mainstreaming, has been mainstreamed in energy system. In fact, you collected a lot of data, and I've seen data collected from the various partners of this project, and it's important to keep monitoring. So it's essential that these data are available to everybody, first of all, and in the sense that these data should be not only for the people in this project, but available online, so everybody can look at that, and everybody can become familiar and aware of what is the situation at the moment. And this will be, let's say, our business as usual, our starting point. And then for the future, it's important to keep monitoring the data that you collected so far. So this monitoring should become systematic, and in the future we will compare the future situation with the one that is now, to understand if we have actually done any step ahead, if we actually are moving toward that goal that Rocio was mentioning that we want to achieve by 2035 or by 2050. So data collection is extremely important. It's important to collect sex disaggregated data, because we want to know really what's the role of women in the energy system. So not only in the education, for instance, from data collected that you showed today, we saw, and also Roxani mentioned, that women in Europe and in Northern America, for instance, have access to education, but the bottleneck is in another step, is in accessing the career, in having long-term occupation and jobs. In fact, for instance, in Europe it happens that we can we can go to the university, we can receive the best education also in terms of technology, and also many of us had a PhD, but then after the PhD, when it comes to us the need of become a mom, for instance, then our careers stop. So my suggestion is that your data must become available for everybody and public, and maybe also translated into policy brief. So what you want to say with your data to policymaker, and because this type of data, science-based data collected in the field, are extremely important for policymakers, to inform policymakers that can shape new policies, and all together we can do a step ahead towards the achievement of the goal. So data are essential. To me, it should be transparent, and are the base on which we will build on our future by keep monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now let's move to the factors that can foster cultural transformation towards inclusive energy systems. Bettina, from your perspective as a woman working in a big international company, what factors would be most important or effective?
Okay, thank you. So At first, I'm really pleasure to be here, and also the last 2 days, or yesterday and today, it was so inspiring for me that I changed, I think, 5 times what I want to say today. So, so now it's coming really, so from very global aspects and so on. I want to share a little bit what was happened in our company, because when I go to this company 30 years ago, this company there was no woman in the management system included. It was a traditional, let's say, family business structure, and the women are found in the laboratory and of course in the soft offices like human resources and marketing. That was a little bit the starting point. So today, where we are a company with 50% of our management system are women. We have also in the department, in the technology department, nearby 50% of women hired. So where we are extremely struggling is on field technician, so welder, construction work. So this one is something where we are extremely empty with women, but it's really also of the fact of the work, maybe, and as the environment of the work. But at least in the structure and in the management system, we are nearby of 50%. And I maybe want to share what was our way to do this, which is maybe not the way for everybody, but this is one experience that I can share with you, and I would like to share. So I think somehow in our company it was needed the pioneer woman. So it means that there was a woman who has the knowledge, who has the possibility to adaptation, because in the first moment you don't find a pleasured structure, pleasure culture, and a work environment. And you have to be, the woman has to be also creative, humor, so a lot of attitudes and a lot of characteristics. The biggest one maybe is really the adaptation, and not go so fast angry. That is to take a lot of humor. But starting from this one, of course, you have a lot of measurement. So when you make an error, the error can be gender, or it will be a gendered error, and it will be not only knowledge lack or something not so much trained or so on. But from this starting point, I call it, there is a creation of the first generation, the second generation, and the third generation. So the growing number of women inside will change the culture internally. And it's not a rule change. It's not that there is no rules in the company, don't make so much statistic jokes, don't make, all this, let's say, what we have in mind. But it's something which is growing over years. Step by step, it's a growing process. And in our company, this one was functioned very well. From 30 years ago to today, to become, I think we are not in the third generation. The third generation for me would be that there is an error and nobody will anymore asking, oh, maybe she is a woman, she is not a woman, or also the work assignment is not connected. Can she do it as a woman or not? Maybe here, sometimes we are still struggling and we are in the development process, but at least we have just a position. So we have just a woman in the position. We have project engineers, project manager, for big projects, international projects. So, what is for us important, of course, we need the trained woman. We need the woman who has the education, we need the engineer. So, and normally we will find, when we have an engineer the position outstanding, we will find one woman and 30 of men in the candidation. So this one, of course, we need also a little bit more of quantity. For sure, what I can, as my personality experience, say, when there is in 30 candidates, one woman, I would choose a woman. Not because she is a woman. Pay attention, it's not because she is a woman. Because I know that this woman has a much better education than the other men. Because in the 29 men, I have to search who is the good guy. Because I know that a big part of them are also mess. Instead, from the one girl or from the one woman, I know she has passion. Because otherwise she would not be there with the candidation. And this is not so much to choose the woman, but to choose the easiest profile for me in this moment. Otherwise I need to interview 29 guys, and you know it's time. So also this one, it's something which I think can change in the application. My dream would be that in the future, it's not that the woman is the better one, because it means I have 20 or 20, so 50%. So then, of course, then it's a completely normal process of choosing something. Today, it makes me also easy, I would say. So this is a little bit the view that I would like to give from my perspective, and yeah.
Thank you very much. I hope we have time for second round. Okay, so I would like to go back to Roxani, and we heard from Bettina's talk that we need more women, more engineers within the system. So would you like to share any reflections on how to expand women's access, their participation, and also women in leadership positions within energy system?
Sure. Perhaps I'll speak more from our experience with Youth for Climate, empowering young leaders more broadly, including young women, and some of the barriers that we're seeing. So I spoke quite a bit earlier about labor market participation, but there's also huge barriers in entrepreneurship overall, which then amplify further the access barriers that women face entering the energy sector. So, and I heard some of these mentioned yesterday in terms of the difficulty with business registration processes, the fact that in many countries young women cannot open bank accounts, perhaps without the permission of a man, that they're less likely to participate in entrepreneurship trainings, perhaps again because of family responsibilities. So this just enhances the participation gaps already inherent in the energy sector. What we do with Youth for Climate, we work with entrepreneurs, yes, but also with youth-led civil society and young individuals, precisely because of this difficulty registering a business, right, or an NGO. I worked in Somalia for a while, and there it took, I think, on average 7 years to register a business, and it was very costly. So probably by the time you have a great idea to tackle an energy challenge in your community, you've long since given up on doing something about it. And the access to finance is really key. So accessing finance as a young person, probably as a woman as well, it's the same as getting your first internship. If you don't have prior experience getting a loan or a grant, it's really, really difficult to make that first step as a financier. Also, young people, so under 30s are half the world population, literally 50%. They receive less than 1% of climate funds. If you look at how much that then goes to young women, to youth with disabilities in conflict-affected areas, indigenous groups, etc. You can imagine it's just a really tiny fraction of finance. So with Youth for Climate, we work on many topics, supporting youth-led innovation with funds that are supposed to, really be catalytic. So these are innovations with a strong proof of concept that really need that first trust of a partner to then unlock further partnerships. So we've worked in, of course, with energy solutions, food system solutions, climate peace and security, climate and health, climate education. This year we're working on sustainable fashion and textiles, oceans. Really lots of really interesting work that we're seeing happening, and in each sector, of course, there's some unique challenges. In the energy sector specifically, we see quite a big gender gap in the proposals that we receive. So even though our process is quite accessible, so we don't have those barriers in terms of complex grant-making processes, etc., only a third of our energy applicants are women, whereas if you look at who's applying for funding for climate education projects, it's the reverse, right? And then we work on balancing this out ultimately in the funding decisions that we make. I'll give you some examples of the types of women-led solutions that we're working with. And again, the innovation is not necessarily in the technology. It can be in how it's applied or how it helps better reach marginalized groups in turn. In Bolivia, we're working with a young woman called Valeria Rivero, who's leveraging biodigesters for livestock, using livestock waste. In Botswana, with the Global Youth Parliament, who are developing an energy efficiency rating system for Botswana. In Peru, we worked with a women-led project called Ailuk Kanchainin, bringing off-grid solar solutions to populations in the Amazon. In Kenya, with a really successful women-led business called Fayon, which is bringing clean cooking stoves, and she's using women who were previously involved as firewood suppliers now to sell these stoves. So she's also helping create alternative livelihood pathways, replacing for those clean solutions. In Uganda, rejuvenation of dead solar batteries. In Mali, a young woman working on solar cookers. So some really interesting cases from around the world. Alongside the funding, we run a mentorship program where we connect them to academia, companies, mentors from UN agencies and other stakeholders, really based on a learning needs assessment that we do that accompanies them during the implementation. We're working with financiers to secure follow-on investments for some of these projects that are most scalable, and we facilitate a lot of networking, so bringing them to relevant, especially sector-specific events where these perspectives are missing. So with Tiziana, with the Global Bioenergy Partnership, for instance, bringing these young innovators to regional forums that they organized. Recently, we were at the Clean Tech Forum in Vienna a couple of weeks ago with a young woman-led project. And the visibility is really, really important for them, almost as important as the funding, I think, in really bringing the legitimacy to what they're doing. So we filmed a documentary, we read a lot of stories about their work, and really positioned them as role models in creating, having been bold enough to pursue these alternative career pathways, which are really not always the easiest to take on. That's a bit about what I wanted to share.
Thank you very much. Roxani brought up the issue of financial resources, so maybe we will continue on this topic, and I would like Bettina to share your perspective of this aligning financial support with inclusion and gender equality.
Yeah, this is especially for the renewable energy. At the moment, we are in a very, very important phase of the development of this kind of industry. So I can tell you, like before, years ago, the most part of the renewable companies are family hosted. So they are small or medium-sized companies. Now this market is extremely growing. And in this market, go inside the big investment structure. Because now the projects are big, there needs more finance, and at the moment this renewable energy market is completely changed from a medium-sized company market in a big finance investor market. So here I would say also we need to be aware, because this one will also be again a structure change. So also maybe points that we have received till today, they can very fast slip over again, because of course this investment and finance structure bring also the culture of companies inside in the new renewable energies. So, and this is not only for work position, but it's also what kind of products I want to develop. I want to develop a renewable energy which is accessible to everybody, or I want only to produce renewable energy which give me the highest profit. So this one will be a big, so here at the moment we are really in the borderline of transition of the renewable energy to a total new financial system. And here everybody, and this is not only the people in the company, but also the politicals and especially the scientists needs to be aware and needs to have an eye on it. What is the development from in the next years in this market? Because it becomes much more and more financial, and also this one is again something which women who want to work in this business needs to develop the knowledge. So it's not anymore to be an engineer, but I need to be an engineer who has also the knowledge of finance. So financing is something which become more and more important. And finance is not, the example before was more an example of bottom to the top developments that can be done now. I think the finance is not easy to make something from the bottom to the top, but here it's really something, this one needs to be adjusted and to be managed from the top to the bottom. So here policy makers are extremely important to give the rules, to give the rules for decision maker, and to give also the regulation of how the system can run and what they need and give them also the let's say the final view of what we want from the system, and it cannot be only financial. So here, attention. One point this is a little small outcome, but I have a very nice discussion before with Johanna from Poland. And we came both together that she and her, we have a part of our lifetime, the youngest, in a total different social system, let's say like this. Because she was growing in Poland, I was growing up in DDR. Where this kind of, let's say, question of how many women are working in the energy sector and what, also you for sure, it was not part of the discussion. So there are some systems which are not anymore visible, let's say, which are for sure not finalized and they are not perfect, but there were just also systems where the question, can I be as a woman an energy engineer, were not even were completely clear. Yes, of course you can. So all these questions that is coming today, and which is, let's say, a challenge today for us, in this particular society where maybe not completely solved and maybe not also in the best way for all the women. I don't want to make it now in a perfect red or rosa light, okay? But it's something interesting maybe to look inside and to understand if there is some points which can help us also to work today. So this is maybe a small point to the scientist world to take a look also in this, let's say, not anymore existing culture of work. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And this brings us to the final element of the puzzle, so policy making and governments. We won't be able to make a change without this element. So Tiziana, a question for you. What are your reflections on institutionalizing or mainstreaming gender equality into policy making and governments?
Thank you, Paulina. From my experience, I think that education, data collection, and also the private sector, the experience coming from the private sector, are strictly interlinked with the policy. So when we have good educated new generation and we have science-based data, we can build good policy, and also information from the private sector, which are particularly relevant to build long-lasting and effective policy. So mainstreaming gender in policy is extremely important because it's the top-down approach. So in some cases it's extremely important, for instance, in policy to have policy and regulation that allow women to have the same role of men, to have access to job, to have access to career opportunity, having policy supporting women in the moment in which they, for instance, they have children. So also social support is important. It is not necessarily to be addressed to women, but also, for instance, to men. So giving to men the possibility to stay home because they can take care of children. So I think a behavioral change needs to be put in place, because I heard today in a presentation someone was mentioning if you don't have access to energy, we struggle because we, as a women, don't have access to the washing machine, for instance. This is part of our wrong mindset. It's not our problem. Also, it's a problem of the male that are with us if the washing machine doesn't work. It's not why we care, why we think that it's just our problem. So our mindset needs to be changed, and the change will be facilitated by enabling policy, but at the same time we need to build a different bottom-up approach. How our parents have done with us that are here today, all these successful women that are here today, we need to do the same with the new generation. We are the one building the new generation, so giving them not only access to education, but also inspiring them by giving visibility to successful women, for instance, as we do at the Global Bioenergy Partnership. During this flagship event we organize every year, we always call women to share their successful experience, because we believe that is extremely important, because we need to say to young women, you can do it. I mean, get inspired and try your best and build your career as the others have already done. So it's the policy, mainstreaming gender in policy is important, but it's important also to use this bottom-up approach. That means mainstreaming gender consideration in our daily life. So I agree with Rocio. We have to pursue this back casting approach. So let's define our vision, what we want to achieve by 2035, by 2050. But at the same time, while we work to achieve these middle and long-term goals, let's act on a daily basis to give a voice to women and to empower women and women-to-women empowerment, because to change what we do on a daily basis. So let's look at the vision, but let's change also what we do every day to and transfer this to our children, because it starts. Let's start from the bottom and to build a better future. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to mention one thing that I forgot. The backcasting workshop was, of course, focused for the case of Europe. I wish that we could have had the opportunity to do the workshop also for the countries in Africa, because several of us have worked also in the Global South, and we know that the vision, there are many commonalities that were expressed there, but they have to be regionalized, because there are changes, for example, indigenous groups, disabilities that, particularly in the Global South, are less attended. Let's say that here in Europe. So I just wanted to have that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have like 2 minutes for 1-2 questions from the audience? Anyone interested? Yeah. Yeah.
Over lunch or now? Yeah, if there is now, let's go.
Oh, thank you.
It was maybe more comments, and thank you very much for your presentation. And it was very interesting when you were speaking about long-term, education. And when I was working about flexibility, when we reviewed the article about, old people, they were. It was interesting because we see them like as a more, vulnerable and very hard to change their behavior, and they say, at the contrary, no, because we live in another society when we were younger, and we know we can change. And it's also about what you say and what Marielle said yesterday about, before it used to be woman at the core of the energy, and in other society it's also possible, So voilà, it was just a consideration that make me think, and thank you for your work to make things change, small by small, but for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question, yes.
Then the sunshine is waiting us upstairs, so it's really the last one.
No, thanks to all again. I wanted to say 2 things. One on we need to change behavior, but we also need to change the incentive scheme. It's always like that. So was thinking about the maternity dilemma, the paternity dilemma. Of course, we need to change men's minds, but if they don't have the paternity leave, of course, they won't take it. This is purely economics, so it's a mix of the two, I will say. In Italy, I think we have a perfect example of why it's not rational to do it for the men's point of view. But yeah. And the other point that I wanted to say, Bettina, you are enlightening higher, I would say, because you have, let's say, an informed point of view when you recruit applicants. But I will say, in general, we want also to increase women applicants when they do applications, we need to make their life simple. And this comes from empirical evidence, because there is evidence that women applies less to applications unless they have all the competencies that are required filled, because they want to be really sure that they have them. And so perhaps making the application process easier, like, making some competencies optional, perhaps might increase the application rate also from the women's side. That's it.
Sorry, I would only, I'm agree, of course, that application needs to be in somehow easier or transparent. I would not say it easier, it needs to be more transparent, okay? But I would also say, and this is a little bit underlining, so make it easier is not possible for all the work. So, for example, when you want to go to top management, it's not an easy life. So this one has to be clear to everybody who want to go there. So and I think it's also not fair and not right to think that the top manager can have an easy life and a perfect work-life balance with the family. This is a choice that everybody has to do for his own. I want to make this one, yes or not. And then I can, of course, I need structure and I need a helping hand, I need family care and everything around. But to think today that everybody can make every kind of job, it's not true.
The life of the job is the skill required in the application. That's the bottleneck. Even apply with you that they have all the skills required. Otherwise, they don't apply.
That's true for the that is true what I say for, let's say, this pioneer woman, for the first or for the first woman and for the second line. After that, I think this is coming much more not so important. So when a company has just a high quantity of women inside, then it's also not anymore so important that the new candidate has a full, complete, perfect curriculum available, because then it's just a culture change done in the company, or at least you are just in a form of transition, and then it becomes, I think it's difficult really for the first one or for the first part, but then you have the culture change coming in the company from the bottom to the top.
Thank you very much for the questions. Thank you for your insightful inputs, and thank you for patience.
Thank you.